I discovered my boyfriend had 4 women at the same time when a stranger sent me a message on Instagram. What we found when the 5 of us met at a cafe was worse than any of us imagined. And what we did with that information, he never saw coming. There are messages that arrive and divide the day into before and after. Not the messages you were expecting. Not the ones you recognize by the sender's name before you open them. The ones that arrive from unknown numbers. From accounts you do not follow. From people who do not exist in any part of your known life. Mine arrived on a Thursday at 7 in the evening while I was heating up dinner. It was from an Instagram account I did not recognize. Profile photo of a woman. Unverified. Few followers. The message said, "Hi, we don't know each other, but I think we both know the same man, and I need to tell you something." I read it twice, and then I put the dinner in the refrigerator because I knew I was not going to eat. My name is Valentina. I am 29 years old. I am a nutritionist, and until 7 months ago, I was dating a man named Rodrigo who was 34 years old, worked in architectural design, lived alone in an apartment in the city center, and had, I only understood after everything came to light, a capacity to compartmentalize his life that in any other context could have been an admirable skill. Rodrigo was not what people imagine when they think of the kind of man who cheats on multiple women simultaneously. He was not particularly handsome. He did not have the obvious charisma of someone who fills rooms. He was more quiet than anything. Intelligent. The kind of person who genuinely listens when you talk to them and who asks questions that show they were paying attention. That capacity for attention, I learned too late, was his most dangerous skill because he used it with all of them. We had been dating for 8 months when a message arrived. 8 months that had been, from my perspective, a normal relationship with its normal ups and downs. Rodrigo was busy. He traveled frequently for work, or so he said. There were weeks when it was difficult to coordinate schedules, but nothing that had generated serious alarm. Nothing that could not be explained. I responded to the message. I told her yes, I knew Rodrigo, that we were in a relationship. The response came in less than a minute. It said, "So am I." Her name was Camila. She was 27 years old. She had been with Rodrigo for 7 months. 1 month less than me. In her story, which she told me in the following 20 minutes of messages that arrived with the speed of someone who's been holding this for a long time and who finally has someone to tell it to, Rodrigo was also her boyfriend. He also told her he traveled for work. There were also weeks that were hard to coordinate. The same story, the same explanations, the same man. Camila told me she had come to suspect because she had found my name on Rodrigo's phone in a way that had no innocent explanation, had looked at my profile on social media, and something about what she saw had told her I was not a friend or a colleague. I asked her if there were more. There was a pause. She said she did not know, that it was what she wanted to find out. Camila and I met 2 days later at a cafe neither of us frequented, so there was zero possibility of Rodrigo showing up. We recognized each other immediately, even though we had never seen each other before. There is something very strange about meeting the person with whom you have been sharing, without knowing it, the man you thought you were building something exclusive with. A mixture of shame and anger and an immediate solidarity I did not expect to feel, and that was the most valuable thing that came out of the entire process. We compared stories for 2 hours. The coincidences were too many to be chance and too precise to be misunderstanding. The same restaurants, but on different days. The same work trips that covered the weekends he was with the other one. The same phrases, in some cases literally the same phrases that we had heard at different moments in our respective relationships. Rodrigo had a script, and he used it with professional consistency. Before we finished our coffee, Camila took out her phone and showed me something. She had been reviewing Rodrigo's social media more carefully since she had contacted me. She had found comments, interactions, a pattern of presence on other women's profiles that did not add up for someone in an exclusive relationship. She had identified 2 more names. Contacting the other 2 was the most uncomfortable conversation I have had in my life. Not because they were hostile, but because each one's reaction to receiving the message was a mirror of what I had felt when I received Camila's. That combination of initial disbelief and growing certainty of someone who is fitting together pieces that had always been there, but that she had had no reason to connect. The third was named Sophia. 31 years old, 4 months with Rodrigo. The fourth was named Andrea, 26 years old, 3 months with Rodrigo. The four of us at different stages of the same relationship that none of us knew she was sharing. Sophia, when we finished telling her, said something I did not forget. She said that explained why sometimes when they talked about future plans, he changed the subject with such smooth skill that she did not even notice he had changed the subject until long after the conversation had moved on. All of us recognized that. All four. The four of us met 1 week later. Same cafe. Table at the back. 2 hours that started with the awkwardness of 4 strangers who share something none of them chose to share, and that ended with something I could not have predicted. A kind of camaraderie built on the shared experience of having been treated as interchangeable parts of a system one man had built with a great deal of dedication. We compared dates. We compared stories. We built a timeline. What the timeline showed was that Rodrigo had not started with all of us at the same time. He had incorporated each of us in a staggered way. When a relationship with one of us reached a certain point of closeness or expectation, a new one appeared. As if he needed to always have different levels of emotional intensity active simultaneously. It was not impulsivity. It was a system. And the system had been running, according to the dates we were able to reconstruct, for at least 2 years. Before any of the four of us, there had been others. Sophia had found a 5th woman in Rodrigo's social networks who lived in another city and who, when we contacted her, confirmed a story that followed exactly the same pattern. 5 that we knew about. Probably more that we did not. The question all of us had was what to do. We had talked about confronting him individually. We had talked about ignoring it and simply disappearing from his life. We had talked about posting something on social media. It was Andrea, the youngest of the 4, who proposed what we finally did. Andrea said that posting on social media could backfire on us, that he could frame it as harassment or defamation, and that we would be exposed. That disappearing without more left him free to keep doing the same thing to others. That confronting him individually gave him the opportunity to manage each conversation separately with the same script he used for everything. That the only way to take away his control over the narrative was to take away his ability to compartmentalize. That we confront him all at the same time. We sent a coordinated message, not from our 4 individual accounts. From a new account we created together specifically for this, with a neutral name, and from which we sent him a message that said only, "We know everything." All 4 of us. We are meeting Saturday at noon at Café Mirador. If you want explanations, you have the opportunity. If you do not show up, we also have the answer we need. We gave him 4 days. Those 4 days, according to people in his circle that one of us had contact with, Rodrigo spent in a state of notable agitation. Asking questions, try to find out who knew what, trying to understand the extent of what had come to light. On Saturday, at noon, all 4 of us were at the cafe. Rodrigo arrived. He arrived alone, 10 minutes late, with the expression of someone who has been calculating what to say and who knows that none of the things he calculated is enough. He sat down. He looked at all 4 of us, and he said nothing for a time that nobody broke because none of us was in a hurry. When he spoke, he said he was sorry, that he knew there was no explanation that justified what he had done, that he had been in a very complicated place in his personal life and had made decisions he should not have made. Camila asked him how long he had been doing this. He said several years. She asked him how many women. He stayed silent. She told him that was also an answer. Each of us, 4, told him what we wanted to tell him. I'm not going to reproduce what the others said, because those are theirs. What I told him was brief. I told him that what cost me the most was not the deception itself, that the deception was his decision and said something about him that I could not change. What cost me the most was the precision, the amount of work he had dedicated to keeping the system running, the details he had managed, the energy he had invested in keeping 4 people in ignorance simultaneously. That all of that energy and all of that intelligence used another way could have built something real, and that he had chosen to use it for this. That was, for me, the saddest thing of all. He did not respond. We left. Not dramatically. We paid for our coffees, put on our coats, and walked out to the street. Outside, the 4 of us stood on the sidewalk for a moment. And then something happened that was not planned. Camila laughed. Not nervously, not hysterically. She genuinely laughed. In that way, that sometimes the most absurd situation activates laughter before any other response. And all four of us laughed on the sidewalk outside the cafe, where we had just confronted the man who had been dating all of us simultaneously. Not because it was funny, but because sometimes laughter is the only human response that gives the right proportion to something that would otherwise be too heavy to carry. Rodrigo never contacted any of the four of us again. I know, through Sophia, who has a mutual friend with him, that he spent some time in therapy after what happened. I hope that is true, not specifically for him, but because the pattern he built over years did not appear out of nowhere and is not going to disappear on its own, and the people who come after us deserve someone to have worked on that before they arrive. Camila and I are still in contact. We get coffee every month and a half or so. It is a friendship strange in its origin and completely real in what it has become. It has the solidity of things built in situations where there is nothing to pretend. Andrea and Sophia are in a message group with us that we use infrequently, but that is there. All four of us know that if one of us needs something, the other three respond. That which was in no plan is the most unexpectedly good thing that came out of all of this. What I want you to take from this story is not generalized distrust toward the people you date. Not everyone is Rodrigo, and living assuming they are is a reliable way to hurt yourself before anyone else does. What I want you to take is this. When someone contacts you with information that affects something important in your life, listen before dismissing. Camila could have chosen not to send me that message. She could have decided it was a problem between him and me that was not hers to resolve. She could have been afraid I would react badly or that I would not believe her. She chose to send a message. That decision changed the situation for both of us, and for all four. Women who choose to share difficult information with other women instead of staying silent out of fear of the reaction are not creating the problem. They are giving you the information you need to make your own decisions. That deserves gratitude. Not always immediately, but eventually always. If this story left you thinking, comment, would you have gone to the cafe, or would you have preferred not to know? Like if you believe women who warn each other are doing the right thing. Subscribe for more real stories. Share with someone who needs to hear this today. Reflection to take with you. The person who sends you the difficult message you did not want to receive is frequently the one who is respecting you the most in that moment. Receive it with the openness it deserves before reacting.